just be humble and try to accept and understand that there are many yous inside of you with different purpose and different goals, let's say. But still, you can be in charge. You can decide how to react. You can decide what to do. Just keep in mind, use something that is called metacognition, that we have it as a human being, the capacity to observe ourselves from outside.
Welcome to the Future Ready Advisor podcast. I'm your host, Sam Sivarajan, wealth management consultant and behavioral scientist. Join me and my guests, from industry experts to top advisors, as we explore the pain points that financial advisors face, how they can solve them, free up their time, and make their practice future ready. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Sivarajan. Welcome to this episode of the Future Ready Advisor. Today, I'm here with Dr. Carlos Davidovich, a neuro-management expert who is here to talk about our brains, all 5 of them, and how we can harness their power to build and manage great client relationships. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Well, I'm very welcome. I'm very delighted to be here, and thanks for the invitation. Really, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor.
Well, looking forward to diving in, but let me introduce you to our guests first. Dr. Davidovich trained as a medical doctor in Argentina. He has been a senior executive for global pharmaceutical firms and is now an executive coach. He gives workshops and lectures on neuromanagement and on how to apply neuroscience in organizations and businesses. Carlos is a published author, teaches neuromanagement courses at several MBA programs around the world, and has even given a TED Talk on the 5 brains. Carlos, you've recently published your book, 5 Brain Leadership. Can you briefly describe the 5 brains that we all have, what they are, and what they do?
It's a great way to start something for sure. So I will say, connecting dots in the way to understand better our behavior, and that's the purpose. My framework is to talk about 5 brains that they are mainly connected, let's say, with 3 big areas of our behavior: our instinct, our emotions, and our rational brain. So the way we really analyze and arrive to conclusions. Why? The purpose definitely is to be able to understand what part of us is talking at each moment, because based on that will be the consequences and the impact on our clients, on our behavior, on our results. The 5 brains, 3 are located in the upper skull here in the big brain, and evolutionary, let's say, nature didn't replace brain, was adding one over the other. So we have the very old one, the reptilian one, that is quite known, that is 500 million years of existence and in charge, let's say, of survival. So basic needs. The second one is the one that we inherit from big mammals, let's say apes, horses, and that one is what we call in the human brain, we call it the emotional brain. So emotions in human body are all over the places, but the headquarters is located in this second brain. And it has 200 million years of existence. The last one is the one that we, let's say, received or we developed, was the rational one. That in the way that we know it today, it has, let's say, 50,000 years. There's nothing. So here we can just, let's say, share one of the consequences of this. Number one, the brain we trust the most is the instinctual one, because we know is the one that saves us. Mm-hmm. And even today, and mainly in the area of expertise that you, Sam, and your people and your audience is involved, is this is quite present all the time. So we are talking about how to deal with my investment, how to deal with my money, and that will, I would say, trigger our flight, freeze, fight reaction very easily because we will feel under threat, we will feel fears, and everything will go around our instinct. The other two is one is our heart that is also contains neurons, brain cells. Still, we don't know exactly the purpose of this brain, but definitely is connected with our emotions and is connected also with our memories. So this is something that scientifically now we are finding out, and it's a completely change of paradigm. And the number five is the one that we have established in our gut. So our gut brain, and so now we know that gut feeling is not just the same. You know, our gut brain is a completely nervous system that determines a lot of actions in our body, connection with our diseases, connection with our mood. It's a very, very powerful one. And just as one more comment, all the neurotransmitter, like talk about serotonin, and serotonin we know that is the one connected with happiness, is mainly produced in our gut. This information is completely new. We thought that everything was produced in our big brain. Well, it's not true. And this is one of the reasons that our digestive system is so connected with our emotions and the way we feel. I think that
So,
we're okay so far, unless you want me to expand a little bit on any of them.
no, look, I think you hit the nail on the head insofar as the audience is dealing with clients who are looking at investments. And I think, you identified that instinctual brain, the freeze, fight, or flight instinct is obviously something that is a common phenomena or stimulus in the investing world. You also have emotions, and I think you talked about the most modern of the brains in our head, the rational brain. How would you describe, and I think this is part of your coaching, your neuro leadership, neuro management expertise, how do these three components, like the emotion, the instinct, and reason, how does it influence our behavior? Or maybe a better way of putting it is, how do we manage those brains effectively to get us to our desired outcomes?
That's a great question, Sam. Let's start from the beginning. Human brain, and I'm going to say something quite provocative, let's say, to start with. Human brain is not prepared to make 100% rational decision. The rational brain is not the one that will act, that will make us do something, to action something. The switch to make an action is physically located in the emotional brain. Therefore, it's something that is so hard to accept for our Western culture that we need to feel rational. It's a need. It's a basic. I'm very rational. But this, at the moment that we are able to understand that is absolutely wrong, then we can start understanding not only our behavior, but how to start dealing with our clients. So I'm talking about once I remember a very old friend of mine that was a trader, I mean, a stock market, very, 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 very successful. And one moment I asked him, as I think I asked you before, some moment, say, at least, I mean, all this analysis to know where to invest, when to invest. And in that moment, I told him that must needs a lot of rational analysis and
Mm-hmm.
understanding. And he started laughing. He started laughing his head off and said, Carlos, if my work would be mainly rational, I will be completely successful. And that is absolutely wrong. My business is led by emotions. And he didn't know a word about the brain and all this stuff. But he had experience. to know that everything was in one way or the other led by our emotions. And I want to clarify the word emotional has a very negative marketing. In every language, we use it in a negative way. When somebody is emotional, we assume somebody cannot deal or is not managing the emotion. And it's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is emotions is, I will say, the trigger of one of us actioning, so doing something. The rational brain will help us to arrive to conclusions, but our emotions are the one that will push us to do something and to make it happen. At the moment we understand the language of each of them and we can identify the language of each of our brain, that is, I will say, the golden rule. Because in that moment, I will start listening different to my clients. I will start listening different to my own thoughts.
So, is it
Go ahead,
fair
sorry,
to
Sam.
say that each of these inputs, each of these brains, in a sense, the emotional brain or the rational brain, are providing inputs to the person making the decision? And the idea is to take the value from each of these inputs in a meaningful way to be able to arrive at a decision. So it's not reason alone, it's not emotion alone, but each can inform the
No,
other in terms of arriving at the appropriate decision. Is that a fair way of putting it?
absolutely. It's a perfect way to put in it. And what I learned from you so many times when you said the problem in my sector, in your sector, is when the market is going down, everybody start running away. And they want to take the money out and then the stuff. That is reptilian reaction. This is survival mode. And you told me very clearly, and that is a mistake. Because we were so used to fight, to flight, to freeze, that we keep behaving in that way. And we also need to know that the reptilian brain is very clever. The reptilian brain is very clever to hijack the rational brain. So I will come to you if you are my financial advisor, and I will explain in a very rational way that I need just to move my money to a different place. And who is talking through me? It's my reptilian brain. But I'm intelligent enough to, I will say, to build it with rational analysis or
With
with
rational
rational
arguments.
support. But the truth is that I'm driven by fears. Period.
So that's a great segue to the question then. So how does a financial advisor deal with a client who's coming in with a reptilian brain, a motivation masked in a rational brain clothing?
I would love, Sam, and we can maybe do something about it. Let's organize a training for advisors, for financial advisors, to know how to identify and each brain talking because they are patterns. I cannot explain you. I mean, we don't have time, but they are patterns of the reptilian, they are pattern of the emotional, and they are pattern of the rational. At the moment you can identify this, then you can understand what your clients really wants, and second, then you can really advise in a way that your client will listen to you. So what I'm trying to say is remember the definition of communication. The definition of human communication is any, but let's say human communication is not being the best version of myself. This is not good. In other words, and let's say if we connect with your business, is not knowing the best I can know that is good about my products. That is the rational side. Is speaking the language of my client. That is communication. Understanding and speaking my client's language. That's the only way that my client will really listen to me. What I'm trying to say, you know, Sam, that is a basic rule in selling. But nobody put it in practice. The basic rule is never start explaining the product. Start asking questions. Everybody knows this. And in
Mm-hmm.
your experience, in mine as well, how many salespeople do that? Almost none. because we go with our product, we try to convince, we try to tell more advantage or benefits of our product. That is not the way. It's absolutely not the way to get clients or to keep clients in our portfolio. Make sense?
Makes total sense. I mean, part of it is I've always believed that the advisor client relationship is you're building trust and engagement. And part of that is, I think, aligned with your comment about communicating so that you're heard and that you're understood. And I think if I take your comment one step further, it's you're not focused on the features of what you're selling, but you're focused on the benefits that's going to accrue to the client as a result of doing this, that the goal that they're going to achieve. Now, that only makes sense and it's only relevant if the advisor has understood the client's needs well enough and then is able to communicate effectively enough to the brain that is speaking from the client, effectively communicating the benefits of what the solution that they're putting. Is that a fair?
Exactly.
So I think it's interesting with your comment about that there are patterns that the different brains are speaking, and that with training, an advisor could learn to spot the pattern and how to respond to that pattern. And obviously, I think you've spent years studying these brains and understanding how to manage and deal with them. So we're not going to have time to discuss it in detail on this episode. But what would some general advice that you would provide to financial advisors then to help their clients reach their goals? If the advisor that recognizes that the clients have five brains, that the communication is critical, that it's not about selling the features, but listening to what benefit that the client is looking for. What is the general kind of advice or steps that you would suggest that a financial advisor consider?
Number one is don't start selling until the moment you know what is the real need of your client. And to know what is the real need, what it's not the word is not need, sorry. What is the real motivation of your client to buy or to invest or whatever? I know that we talked many times, Sam, and of course, I mean, you are an expert on neuroeconomics, you're a doctor in that, so you know much better than me on this. But in neuromarketing, for instance, one area that I teach, one thing that I challenge all my students is presenting different products and asking them what is this product really selling. And it's kind of a tricky question. Now I will explain you with some examples. For instance, to give you an example, what Starbucks is selling. Starbucks doesn't sell coffee. That is wrong. You can buy coffee in so many places. Starbucks doesn't sell coffee. Starbucks sells a specific experience that technically is called the transitional time between home and office. And that's why all the furniture, that's why all the way that the stores are designed. But it's nothing about coffee, not connected with coffee. What is Coca-Cola selling? Is selling Coca-Cola? No, you can buy cheaper Coke and even better taste. Coke is not selling Coke. Coke is selling memories. Coke is selling connection with emotional things. And now they are trying to sell happiness. You know that they are connected with happiness. What I'm trying to say is in your world, in selling in general, but in your world, it's even more important to understand the real motivation. And I know because we discussed it and I was connected with many financial advisors when I was living in Canada. They know this. But my understanding is still they don't know how to do it properly. Because I know it's about fear. No, I know it's about, or maybe sometimes it's the grandkids, to have money. It's not what it looks like. This is something that needs a training to learn how to read between the lines or how to see through, let's say, through the veil of what the client is presenting to me. How to do that? I need to have the right questions. So this is about building the right questions, listening properly. That is the way to sell.
No, I was just going to say, I think you're bang on. My experience in dealing with clients has always been it's asking the question and then listening for the answer, but listening deeply for it because the client themselves will give you hints about what their real motivations or concerns or fears are. And I think the art is then identifying what is the follow up question as an advisor that you
Yeah,
want to ask to say, okay, this is what they've said. Now let me dig a little bit deeper to say to explore that thought. Is this real? Is this the surface, or is this really deep down what they believe or what they need? So I totally agree with you that that listening for that answer and then being prepared to kind of veer off script, if you will, and not necessarily jump to the other question that you had written down, but be ready to be able to kind of adapt and say, okay, look, oh, Carlos said something interesting here. Let me kind of dig a little bit deeper to see what exactly he means or how exactly he's thinking about this.
exactly. Remember that the word emotion and motivation, those two words means the same, has the same Latin root. Means movere in Latin means to take action. Without a motivation, there's no action. And if when we are selling whatever, we need to find out what is the real motivation of my client. And in your world, I'm sure that you can list it. And if I ask a financial advisor, everyone will be able to list them. But not necessarily, people are open to listen or to go deeper in finding out that motivation. And it's the only way to get the business done. To arrive to sell, right? I remember when I was in Canada, I was working with mainly people from financial world. And remember one of the organization, they say, oh, we have always there are some salespeople that they are the star, those that can sell everything. And always my question, because I was curious, is about, okay, why these people can sell more than their peers or colleagues, when they are selling the same product to the same, let's say, audience. And always the general answer was because those people are the one that has the best connection with the clients. And I said, what do you mean with the best connection? Well, they understand the clients. That was the way they explained it to me. So what they were trying to say, they were emotionally connected. The clients were emotionally connected with them because they were able to open that door, or they were able to bridge those two worlds. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Great. So let me ask you another question. So we know tensions are great, but they're put to the test in difficult times. This is the reptilian brain that we're talking about, the freeze, flight, or fight instinct. Particularly in the investment world or in the financial services world, I mean, there are market movements, there are political developments, there's the constant news cycle. So the example I always use is that we plan to go to the gym in the evenings, and that isn't hard to do. We all have this good intention, but it's definitely hard to get up in the morning, especially in a cold morning, and get out of bed. So the intention that we had the night before has suddenly disappeared. I would say similarly, like we can in the financial services world, the advisors would have a client agreeing to a financial plan when the markets are calm. But it's difficult for that client, or the reality the advisor faces is that the client then doesn't necessarily want to stay the course when the markets are falling fast. So in this situation, what do you think how do you think an advisor should approach the client to be able to help them stay the course? Something that they'd agreed on and that their intention is to do, but that the reptilian brain is hijacked in the heat of the moment.
The word that comes to my mind, Sam, when you were explaining this, was the word trust. And trust, I think, is the glue in all this story. So if I trust you as my financial advisor, I really trust you because I trust. There are different parameters of trust. There are different equations of trust. One is about that involves credibility, reliability, intimacy. So those are the components, and self-orientation. This is a formula of trust. So what in your business needs to be built is this profound trust. Because at the moment that the reptilian brain is activated, the reptilian brain is not stupid. The reptilian brain will try to find out somebody that can trust. Because he can rely on someone that is trustworthy, then will not run away. We'll just go there and stay quiet, and we'll just freeze. But I will say the big work that has to be done by a financial advisor has to be done when the market is calm, and has to be done through building the real understanding of trust. In that moment, when the storm, when we are in the eye of the storm, then our client will not lose the compass, because what we'll do will come to us and to say, "You are my compass. Tell me what to do." But that has to be built during calm times. Make sense?
Makes total sense. And I think you're absolutely right. I think this is a long-term game. It's a long-term relationship that the advisor is building with the client. And I think that the more work that they can do in laying a solid foundation in good times, in calm markets, the better that they're going to be positioned to really help the client stay the course in tougher market conditions. So this has been great. We're coming to the end of our podcast episode, Carlos. So I have a few final questions for you, something that I'm asking all my podcast guests. So if you're ready, let's play rapid fire questions. So the first question is, professionally, what is the most important lesson you've learned over the years?
How to listen. Just shut up and listen, because the information comes from our clients. Let's stop. Being mindful of all the bias and assumptions that we made all the time, because that's how the brain works, and try just to download the volume and listen properly, and challenge your first assumption. That's what I do in my coaching practice. I always challenge my first assumption, because I know that is completely biased.
That's great. That's good advice. Again, I think it ties back to your five brains, etc. Each of them are giving you inputs.
Yeah.
Don't take any one of them as sacrosanct. I think it's the combination of it that should be giving you the full picture.
The question that I always ask to myself is, because first of all, now I already can identify when my reptilian brain is activated. It's very subtle sometimes, but I identify, and doesn't mean I can manage that. But then, what is the way to manage the reptilian brain? Bringing an emotion, a positive emotion that can help me to deal with it. So I will not be able to run away from fear, from the feeling of fear, because it's an instinctual thing. If something is danger or threatening me around me, I will activate my amygdala and I will activate my reptilian. But then I need to remember those are part of me. It's not me. I still can control the game. So that's why the image I like to bring is we are leaders of our internal team. So one of the members of our team is more instinct, pure instinct, screaming and reacting without thinking. Another one is very emotional, and emotions can be positive or negative. So what I try to, I would say, to train myself is to identify the positive emotion that can help me to stay in my center. Make sense? And I'm not saying it's easy. It's a process. It's a training. But there are some emotions that I know I try to bring those feelings, those emotions that will help me to stay in my place. And in that moment, I can keep the control and use my rational brain in my favor, because the reptilian brain will use it in its favor, the favor of the reptilian brain, not in my favor.
Makes sense. So question 2, what is one practical tip you would offer listeners keen on applying your insight?
You can be in charge of what's going on inside of you. Just be humble and try to accept and understand that there are many yous inside of you with different purpose and different goals, let's say. But still, you can be in charge. You can decide how to react. You can decide what to do. Just keep in mind, use something that is called metacognition. Is that we have it as a human being, the capacity to observe ourselves from outside. So what part of me is excited? What part of me is having fear? What part of me? And in that moment, I'm keeping the control. I don't know how practical it is, but I just...
No, I think it is pretty practical. I think the idea that we can observe ourselves in the process, I think, is critical. I think it reminds me of this quote from Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. Exactly. He says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And it is in that space that we find meaning. And I always took it to mean that we don't have to react every time we are prompted to react. That's what makes humans different than animals. We do have the ability in most cases, because we're not living in the time of the reptilian brains in 500 million years ago. Most of us have the opportunity to have a bit of time between a stimulus and our need to respond right away. And that is the time where, as you say, we can observe which part of our brain is, which part of our internal team is acting, and whether we're going to allow them to kind of dictate our response, or whether another member of the team should be dictating the response.
Perfect. So, come on, impossible to say it better. The old saying, count until 10 before you give a response, is connected with what you said. Take time before to give an answer, because the information needs to reach the positive emotion and the rational brain. And then we can really respond in the more convenient way, let's say.
Awesome. Carlos, this has been such fun and lots of good stuff to take away. So thank you very much. If listeners want to learn more about you or find your work, where do they go?
Okay, in one way, there is my website is www.carlosdavidovich.com. And if you're interested to watch, you have 15 minutes to watch a TED Talk. It's in YouTube, and it's called 5 Brain Leadership. And also there is a book that I explain all this stuff that is called 5 Brain Leadership, and can be found in every place, Amazon, E.D.G.E, and all those places. The traditional one.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you, Carlos. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I think loads of helpful information for our listeners.
Thanks to you, Sam. Really, really, I enjoy a lot. Thanks a lot. A great question.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Future Ready Advisor. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast. And if you could rate it while you're at it, I would appreciate it. Visit samsivarajan.com, where you can download a behavioral coaching guide and find other resources. Join me in the next episode for more tips and tools to make your practice future ready.